Hi,
you?
I'm good. I just had dinner. I'm well fed. I've got energy.
I mean,
How about you?
lighting is really giving the evening vibe over there. I love it.
It is, yes. Well, it is cloudy outside, but it's just typical London weather.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm super excited to dive in. We will chat for maybe 30, 40 minutes and then open it up to some dialogue at the end. Usually I like to start out just with having you give an intro about yourself, your work, kind of, what you do, where you are, how you started. So I'll let you kind of take over with just a little bit of an intro on yourself.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining, guys. I'm Steffi. For those who don't know who I am, I'm a digital fashion artist. I didn't start in digital fashion. In fact, I was more so a graphic designer at the beginning of my career, then moved into being a 3D motion designer. And then during the year of 2020, when we had lockdown and COVID, I had all this time to myself, and then I started learning digital fashion, implemented that into my 3D pipeline, and now I just do digital fashion all day, every day.
It's so cool. And digital fashion, I feel like, and probably you think about this all the time, is something that is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger with brands, for personal reasons, for shopping, in AR. It's been so interesting watching kind of the progression of things. Where do you feel like it sits right now with just like accessibility? Like, what are people using it for the most? What are people excited by with it? I know you do a lot in the space.
Yeah, so digital fashion at this current point, I would say it's not widely adopted. I feel like I currently live in a bubble. I know quite a lot about it, but if you were to ask, someone on the street, digital fashion, it's not really something people think about. So yes, it is an industry that is super new. It's an industry that is constantly growing, and as tech gets better, I feel like the more accessible the tech is, and also the more education about this space is going to keep growing within the next 5 to 10 years, that's for sure. And so, yeah, I guess types of projects that you can work on in digital fashion is to do with anything that's virtual. Essentially, it could be like virtual worlds. You can think about worlds like Decentraland, or maybe using a VR headset. You can go into those types of worlds. You could also use AR, augmented reality, to access digital fashion, actually wear it, have it body tracked to your body, kind of similar to how you got Instagram filters and it tracks on your face, but more so it's like your whole body. And then the last way is actually just like wearing it, but you like Photoshop it, which is a technique that I do. It is not the cleanest way of doing things, but it is one of the other ways of wearing digital fashion.
So cool. So do you think that, like, where do you think it's going for consumers or personal reasons? Do you think it's going to really like revolutionize the way we shop or look at products or, take photos of ourselves? I feel like there's just such a big range of kind of what it's going to open up when it feels
absolutely.
more
I feel like a lot more brands are going to take it on. A lot of brands are actually dabbling in with digital fashion now. They're, I think, at this experimental phase. I think brands will utilize it within the pipeline, whether they will use it to like visualize a concept or a certain garments, rather than actually sourcing materials, making these samples, and then having it not work out, and then they have to change the material or send these materials. It's just a lot less waste in that kind of sense. In terms of customers, user points, I would say it depends on the accessibility point and the education point. The more accessibility we have towards having these digital fashion means, whether it's using augmented reality, maybe having AR glasses where you put it on and then you can see people have their own AR versions of their outfits, or whether it's having VR headsets that are not so heavy, they're easily wearable, and a lot more people can buy them and use them. I feel like once that is more accessible, then more customers are going to be more willing to use it. But another trend that I'm seeing is that, especially with the younger generation, they are more in tune with, or more adept to using or having online personalities, whether it's like in a game or like an online persona or online avatar. So they are this is gonna be like second nature to them. I think it's very odd for people like us who grew up with seeing the technology change so much, but for the younger generation, it's just going to be like a tool that's going to be there.
Do you think that the work that you produce, like the fashion that you produce, is always going to exist in the digital realm, or do you have any desire to like produce actual garments or fashion or do a runway show in real life, or would your runway show be all, you know, kind of AR
I think
digital?
it's a combination of both. I feel like at this point we are still at the point where people like to have physicality, like having things tactile. So it could be a case of that you could buy into a certain NFT I've created as a digital fashion artwork. And if you bought that NFT, then you can redeem a physical piece as a reward. It could be potentially, if you bought this certain token, you can have access to certain real life events with, I don't know, maybe like you said, fashion shows or catwalks, or just being in a community meetups. So there's just a lot of things you can play here when it comes to, I'm talking about NFTs here specifically, but the reason why is because digital fashion is very closely tied to Web3 and NFTs.
Yeah, totally. So, and I know you've been doing a lot in the Web3 space recently, Decentraland, working with a bunch of different platforms. How has that been going for you? I know you've been doing a lot. You know, does that feel like that's where it should live? Does that feel like there's a good response to it? What's been kind of the high points of that?
I'm always open to trying things out. I feel like, especially since digital fashion is so new, there's just so many things you can play with, especially with the ways I talked about the virtual worlds, AR, or just wearing it or overlaying it with Photoshop. So I feel like Metaverse Fashion Week just went past. So it's held in many different places, and there were a few virtual worlds participating in that. One of the virtual worlds was Decentraland, and there was also Spatial. And so what it was almost like a virtual world you can enter, almost like a game, a virtual world you can enter. You could go see these digital fashion brands. And it wasn't only just digital fashion brands, there were also physical brands like Tommy Hilfiger, and also I think Dolce & Gabbana, but I'm not quite sure. But there were a few physical brands also participating and digitalizing their creations that you could wear virtually. And so it's more like, with these virtual worlds, it's more of a games dynamic. And so for anyone who is a gamer, they would understand what I mean. And I would also compare it with NFTs in terms of these collectibles. When you collect things, it's a very games dynamic system. So yeah, I feel like it's just a new way of seeing fashion, a new way of interacting with fashion. I feel like you're going to attract a different type of audience compared to if you compare it to physical fashion and these physical fashion brands and how they usually do Fashion Week. You know, you got a certain type of people or a certain type of crowd going to those spaces. Now with digital fashion, it's like it's drawing new types of audiences to it. So it's very exciting. That's what I can say.
Yeah, it is super cool. And it has been cool, you know, seeing us working together on some big brand projects, you know, working with Nike and Dell and kind of like showcasing your talent and bringing that kind of to a bigger audience, like through these big brands. So when you're working with a big client like that, what, you know, where does that crossover feel like it makes most sense for you? You know, like building out their garments in 3D, making it accessible for people to wear. You know, I know we did Gucci recently and Dell, and you know, how like, I don't know, like give me your thoughts on just kind of that whole process and
how so we're talking about client projects now, and the first one with Dell was a huge project that I wasn't expecting to be so big. And what was really lovely about that project is that they really trusted my vision. The whole project was, they gave a concept called Expand Your Universe. And so that was the theme. And they said, Steffi, we want you to create a digital fashion piece. We want you to come up with the concept, the idea, but it has to be about this theme. And so they really trusted me with the vision of that. And I decided that it was going to be a sort of, what's that film called? Ready Player One? Yeah. So I think I had that concept in my head. Ready Player One, where you could just like enter these different portals. And so my universe is digital fashion. So I had this vision that, you know, there's this digital garment walking into the digital fashion realm, and you're coming into my world of digital fashion. And so Dell took that idea and they turned it into a whole campaign based upon this animation, which was incredible because it was just amazing to see how they they did world building within this campaign, and it translated not only from virtual but also to a set that we filmed in Bulgaria. And it's just amazing to see these teams put across my vision and also like use my vision and be influenced by it to create something also new. So yeah, that was an amazing project, just because the amount of creative freedom and the amount of trust that they had in my vision.
Yeah, no, that's big. That's super big. And I know you do share a lot of your workflow and a lot of your process on Twitch and on the different various channels. So what do you like to portray when you do that? Are you're showcasing your kind of techniques, you're showcasing your software? I know that's big for a lot of people that are wanting to get into it or kind of understand your trade. What advice do you have to people that want to get into it more? Or, is there something that kind of helped guide you on that process?
I started just posting on social media just because I wanted to be a voice in the space. I feel like I just wanted to share my process, because the way I learned was also from people who shared their process online and all these free tutorials on YouTube perhaps. And so I was so grateful that, these people put their time and energy into teaching other people, that I learned so much and it's helped in my career. So I'm going to do the same thing, really. So that's one of the main reasons why I showcase a lot of my process on these different social media channels. And I feel like for me, it's a way to educate people about the space. I mentioned about the improvement in technology and education. So in the space, because there are not enough people that understand 3D knowledge and also digital fashion knowledge, or just fashion knowledge. It's either one or the other at the moment, and I'm just waiting for more people to combine 3D and fashion and have more digital fashion artists come through. So that's probably the reason why I share so much on social media.
No, I mean, I think it's great, and I think that there's such a cool community for artists and tutorials. And I talk with artists about this a lot, just like the networking community of shared knowledge and kind of learning on your own. And that's how a lot of people do it. So I think it's you kind of offer that skill set and offer advice or direction to people when they're trying to get into doing what you do. Let's see, what else? I know that people are going to want to know a little bit about your technical side of things, software that you use, kind of, what are your big things that you need in the studio to do the work that you do?
I suppose, if I'm honest with you guys, I use at least 5 different programs to make what I make. And as a 3D artist, I did not expect that I would be using this many programs. I thought I would be learning just Cinema 4D and Adobe, and that I'd be good. But at this point, in my workflow, I tend to use DAZ 3D for the avatars. I use Clo 3D or Marvelous Designer to actually build the garments. And then we move into Substance Painter for the texturing. Then we bring everything together in Cinema 4D to perhaps create a 3D environment, light it, and render it. And then finally, we move it into Adobe, After Effects, Photoshop, and we composite it.
Cool. So it's a full range of process. Thank you everyone that's been joining us and kind of jumping around. We're going to open it up to some questions at the end here. After Steffi kind of gives us a little bit more insight, we'll do a live Q&A for anyone that wants to join. You can add a question down below or type it in on the little feed there. What is your typical day like, Steffi? Are you working full-time freelance? Are you working on digital fashion all the time? I know you also have a life and a family and, other things that you do besides just this, but walk us through a little bit of a day in life.
It is hard to describe because there's just so many things that go on in a week. To break it down, I do many things. I'm a digital fashion artist for one, or designer. I also create NFTs from time to time. I also create content creation, which is what you guys see on social media. And so it's like a balance between all of these three. And I feel like sometimes when I got a client work coming through, I will put more emphasis on that. I will push back the other projects. If I have more like an NFT project deadline coming through, then I will prioritize that. So usually I take it as it comes, and I don't know if that's the best way of working, but that's how I currently work at the moment.
No, it's a balance for sure. It's, balancing personal and commercial and things you want to do and things you need to do. And, we always talk about balance, and that's hugely important. I want to talk about the aesthetic of your work a little bit, because I know you are obviously, developing specific styles and garments, and I want to hear a little bit about the inspiration behind that, because it seems like there's a lot of kind of traditional work in there, traditional aesthetic, kimonos and jackets and really beautiful textiles and fabrics. Where is all of that coming from for you, and where are you pulling from? And I mean, obviously it's a big part of you, and
Yeah,
like everyone,
so a lot of my inspiration behind my work derived from my Chinese heritage. I was born in London and I've grew up with very Eurocentric education. So I knew a lot more about like European artists and European history, but I had no clue about Chinese history, or like, a lot of cultural stuff has been missed out. So I feel like as I grew up, I became more aware of that fact, and I really wanted to learn a bit more about my Chinese heritage. And my artworks were a way for me to explore that, not only just for me, but also a way to just educate my audience as well about, so there's certain beautiful patterns. And if you guys look at traditional Chinese clothing, I can just tell you they are vibrant, they got a beautiful embroidery, the materials is just really beautiful to look at. So as a kid, I've just always loved looking at those types of clothing. And so I really want to infuse that into my work and then combine it with modern technology or modern cuts and like fuse it together and create something that is my own.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's like, modernizing the historical, beautiful wares that are such a big part of you. I love that. Are these kind of like fabrics and garments anything that you own or wear on a day-to-day, or does it strictly mainly
I wish I looked that cool in everyday wear, if I'm honest. I usually create garments that I dream of, I fantasize, I want to just like create. So maybe one day they will be physical and then I would have a really cool wardrobe, but I feel like right now my wardrobe is really not as cool as what I create in my artworks.
I mean, same. I wish I could runway dress every day, but that's not quite the reality. What do you want to get into working with more in your work, or is there a direction you want to go or a theme you want to explore? I know every now and then you do avatars, sometimes you do shoes. Is there anything or direction or client that you really want to get into this year and the coming years?
I mean, let me see. I think AR, augmented reality, is definitely one of them. I think augmented reality really goes hand in hand with digital fashion. So any activations with that where I can see people wearing my designs is amazing. I already did like a test run of that when I was at NFT Paris about a month ago. And I partnered with 010, this company that specializes in AR, and they turned my design into an AR filter. And just the ease of having people wear your designs and where it's not stressful, and when they see it, it just makes sense to them. So it was just a wonderful feeling. And as I said, it's no different from how people use facial filters on Instagram and TikTok. It's going to be as easy as that, if not better. And what's really great about these AR filters is that they have physics to them, which when you move your arms, maybe the sleeve will move with you, as in to mimic the actual motion of real fabric would. I would say the tech is still lacking a little bit, but it's gonna get better. So I'm just really curious to see, in a few years' time, how much better the tracking will be and how, people will actually take on augmented reality.
Totally. I love that. Are there any, brands or fashion designers that you would love to partner with or you would love to work with? Kind of start manifesting?
Probably two I would love to work with. And it's probably because I'm a fan of K-pop and I just love the aesthetic. Especially whenever I watch a music video, I'm just like, it's just beautiful. Just the colors and everything and the way things are composition. So the first one would definitely be Esper, because they are an AI focused group, like a metaverse girl group, right? So I feel like that just works really well in terms of what I do. I feel like, imagine if we partnered with them and then they would be wearing my designs or anything to do with that. So that would be pretty awesome. Another one would be this artist called Jackson Wang, and he used to be in another K-pop group called GOT7, but he opened up his own fashion label, and I've been watching him. It's like a streetwear label. And I just really like the fact of what he does. He's like an artist. He directs his own music videos. He's got his own fashion brand. I'm like, wow, I really want to work with you. Like, you do really cool stuff. So, you know, on that side, I would love to do something like that. Fashion brand side, I'm not sure yet, just because my goal, I suppose, is to actually build up my own brand. So that is probably a new goal I'm trying to manifest, like from this year onwards, and we'll see what will happen. And in terms of physical fashion brands, I mean, if anyone's watching, I'm open, really. We are open. So yes, that's who I would say I would love to partner with.
Love that. There were some questions on the first group you mentioned, and that was the A Spa, and it's AESPA, I believe, the girl group. That would be, that would be a dream for you for sure. But they are definitely a great fit for the work and kind of just like their forward AI thinking that they do. I love that. Let's see, what else? Is there any advice you would give to people that want to get into digital art or digital fashion even? Kind of things that you've learned or things that helped you kind of just like baby step into it from the beginning?
There's definitely space for more people to come in. I feel like if you think about digital fashion artists or creators, there's not a lot. If you think about digital fashion agencies and brands, there's a few more this year. That's what I've seen. So in terms of actual designers and artists, there's still not a lot, and you guys can definitely get in and, you know, create your own designs, put your own mark, and, you know, people will recognize you for your style. So I feel like if people want to get into the space, the first thing they should look up is either learning the basics of 3D, or if they already got a 3D background, maybe they learn the basics of fashion, actually how to sew things and to cut things and to actually make patterns. I had to learn fashion terms because I don't come from a fashion background. I'm still learning that now. So it's kind of like just cluing yourself up, because digital fashion is essentially 3D and fashion. And then once you get good at like the basics and the foundations of that, I highly recommend YouTube tutorials, because there's lots of those compared to when I started, which was 3 years ago. So I think the programs Chloe 3D and Marvelous Designer have their own dedicated YouTube channels, which you guys can check out. And then once you've got all of those foundation knowledge, you can start building out your own style, your own animation and artworks. And there's a lot of space to play at the moment. You know, with digital fashion, you can really go crazy. You can bring the elements of digital that is not possible with physical, as in I'm talking about things like defying gravity, or having your outfit on fire made out of ice, and having, I don't know, like have your top animated, the texture actually animates. So things like that is just a lot of fun, and I think not a lot of people have really done yet.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's, you know, the coolest things about 3D is like these fantastical concepts that anything you can think of, you can do. And I love, you know, in digital fashion where the texture of the pattern like is moving, or it's, you know, it looks like it's heat reactive, or it's color changing. I love, you know, being able to create literally anything you can think of. And as something so common as wearables, I think that's really cool. You know, the way a fabric flows, or the way, you know, the texture is interacting with the fabric or whatever. So in the garments that you're making, are you designing the texture, or like the images and the patterns and the textiles first? So you're, you know, actually kind of figuring out what the patterning is going to look like, and you're designing those yourself too. Yeah, so I usually
start off by the style of clothing. So let's say if it was a top or a jacket, I would just make that base asset first, and then the textures can come afterwards. I feel like it's easier that way. But I do tend to make my own custom textures. I feel like it just showcases more of my style, and that's what I want to bring across, especially when I talked about traditional Chinese clothing. Their actual embroidery and like the patterns on them is so like unique that I want to bring that across, and I'm not going to get that if I use a preset from Substance Painter. So a lot of the time, and a lot of what you would see in my designs are custom made.
So beautiful. So we're gonna open it up to a little bit of a Q&A down below. If anyone wants to add in the comments, or send it to me, that little question mark above the bottom is for questions. I see we have a couple that came in, and I see a couple that were scrolling as we were talking, so feel free to resend those now. This is a question for from Ford DV Media, who says, what do you recommend a good pitch to a brand would be? Maybe ask to convert a physical piece to digital, how to get things going. So this is coming from a question where they're curious how you would pitch your work to a brand. How would you approach offering your services or offering, digital fashion to a big client? What would be, I don't know, your direction and why they should sign on and hire you? I guess
if you're gonna go to a physical clothing brand and they have no clue about digital, how would you approach them? I feel like having a body of work showcasing your digital fashion designs really help, because people will only hire you for what they know you can do. So if you can showcase that you can execute digital fashion really well, that's already a bonus. I think telling them that that digital fashion is something new, and that is a value you can bring across, which is not a lot of people can do it at the moment. So it is, even if you are trying to be a digital fashion artist now or designer, it's a really good place to be, because it's so scarce at the moment. So put that as a positive point towards saying, if you want to try something new, I'll be down to recreate maybe this physical piece for you, and we can see what we can work out from there. And I think the most important part is really just reaching out and having that genuine connection with the brand, rather than just saying, oh, hey, are you interested in this? But I think building that relationship and showcasing that you can do the work and execute it to a good quality really helps.
Yeah, totally. And it is so new. And I think that there is a big value in kind of getting ahead of the curve there and diving into kind of the future of AR and what this means, for a bigger picture for fashion and, people in the future. So I think that there's a lot of value in that. I saw a question came through underneath here from Love Design. Thanks for the question. It says, where did you learn Clo? How long did it take you to feel familiar with the program?
Yes.
I'm assuming Clo is one of the programs that you
I learned Marvelous Designer first, and I learned it. I used probably their 30-day trial, which I highly recommend if you guys are curious about it and you just want to go in and give it a little tinker. So I think I started learning it 3 years ago. And I learned it via YouTube videos, but also via live streams on Twitch, which is also why I do live streams on Twitch as well. There was this guy called Jet Set Geometry, and he would stream every single week, just creating clothes. And he was really good at it. He would create digital fashion clothing, like he would make 3 in like an hour, or maybe like 2 hours, and that's pretty quick. So as I was watching him, it was just fascinating, because I would ask him, oh, how did you do that? And he would also explain what he was doing as he was doing it. And that's why I really like watching live streams, because you can really interact with the actual creator, and also you can see what they're doing live. So I recommend doing that. As I said, Clo3D has really built up their YouTube channel, and so has Marvelous Designer. So if you guys want to give it a go to their YouTube channel, test it out. They've got a free trial for 30 days and see if you like it.
Plug. Another one from our kind of feed of comments here. I'm going to butcher this name, but it's Dud is Vedidnuk. Thanks for the question. And they're wondering, how long were you following digital fashion before you started, and why did you start? I know that's something we covered in the beginning, but
yeah,
we can just
so I didn't really have a clue of what digital fashion was until 2019. I was actually and I'm still in this community called DigiGirl. And it was during my time as I was a 3D artist where I felt that the industry was too male dominated, and I really wanted to find an online community that I could really relate to. DigiGirl was that community, and the founder, she has co-founded the Institute of Digital Fashion here in London. So before she did that, she's the founder of DigiGirl, this online community, and they were commissioned by a luxury department store to recreate 7 outfits into digital fashion. And at that point, I think I was freshly graduated, I had nothing to do, and they said, if you want to join this project, put yourself forward. We need some 3D artists to help build the environment. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I did get chosen. So at that point, I was just a 3D artist, helping with animation, lighting, and texturing. And so I watched the other two digital fashion artists, and they were using Chloe 3D or Marvelous Designer. And I was just fascinated because they created a garment out of nothing. And I thought, wow, you know, at the end of this, digital fashion is 3D. That, you know, the way that they're working is similar to what I do. And so during 2020, when it was lockdown, I had a lot of time back. I didn't have to travel to London as much. I just started learning digital fashion, and it was really for fun at the beginning. And then the better I got at it, the more clients I got suddenly and more interest I got, and I started taking it seriously, and now I do it every single day. Yeah.
And here we are. I love that. Bunch more questions came in real quick from Life Enhancer. What are the 3 top brands you want to collaborate with in 2023? So 3 top, I guess, fashion brands.
That's a hard one. If anything, I would love to work with tech wear brands. I've got a new interest with tech wear and streetwear. I'm not sure about luxury brands yet. I mean, we've worked with Gucci already, so that's like a tick off the list already. So I feel like I want to go like the opposite direction and like just work with brands that I think are interesting and within the streetwear kind of realm.
I like that. We'll focus there. Let's see here. Princess Ellie, what jobs can I get as a 3D digital fashion designer? I mean, I think that's a little bit self-explanatory, a 3D digital fashion designer. And I think that for you, I mean, that involves designing, you know, actual garments in 3D for brands. You know, what else? What else are the things that kind of you get commissioned for?
It's interesting because you could potentially make your own brand. Like, that's something I'm planning to do. You could potentially work for other brands and like digitalize their physical collection. That is another thing. You could potentially work in AR because that's another route you could take. And of course, there is you can work with NFTs and just start selling NFTs as your own project. And then the last one is, of course, in virtual worlds and actually creating digital fashion, but for avatars. Because I know there's these virtual worlds, but they need people to actually make those digital outfits for those virtual worlds. So there's just so many things you could do. And a last one to throw in there is you could be a consultant. Really, you could like design things, but if you are really knowledgeable about digital fashion, and as I said, it's very scarce right now, knowing the tech and knowing how to use 3D and fashion and how the space actually works, you could actually become a consultant for certain brands. And so yeah, there's plenty of things you could do.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, just depending on your interests or the direction you want to go, it sounds like there's a bunch of different options. Let's see, I'm going to scroll through the questions that came in a little bit more. Sorry, this is another long name for me to pronounce. Dana Tertelextili is wondering, did you make a YouTube video where you explained how to transfer clothes design to a garment for Decentraland?
No, I haven't. I actually had a platform, NFT platform marketplace do that for me. So from what I understand, it is not too hard. You just gotta get the avatar and actually, you know, utilize. There's a certain program for it, but it is doable. That's for sure. I'd say probably get in touch with the Decentraland team if you want to work with them or want to work with a company who has NFT drops within Decentraland. Maybe that's something you could look into.
Cool. And then scrolling up on our little feed of questions here down below from S Zelling 33. Do you think AI will take over digital fashion? How do you see the emergence of AI? AI is a big question these days.
No, I don't think so. I think AI is a really good tool to use for concept creation and just like visualizing maybe new ideas we haven't really thought of. But I think if you are a creative, there's nothing that can really replace like your brain. If I'm honest, like the way creative works, I feel like AI will always just be something we can use as a tool, as a helping hand, but actually executing the ideas, adding the emotion, the purpose behind it, that's something we as humans are always going to have. So I feel like I'm quite positive when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I think, I think it really also will just enhance the value of something human made, of something, made authentically, or, tactile, or made from a brain rather than a bot. I do think that it will both, it's a scary place, like seeing what they can do, but also, what they can't do. And, authentic emotion and kind of tangible creation still. So I guess that's a good thing. Another question here from Moore Chen Liu. Thank you so much for sending it. How do you balance creative vision and commercial vision with the brands you work with? That's a great question.
What do they mean by that?
I think it's like, how are you staying true to yourself when vision, a commercial brand wants to work with you? So how are you balancing creative vision and commercial vision with the brands you work with?
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. First of all, hi Moshin, that is my friend. I would say if you're working with a brand, you got to also respect that they are your client, and that you got certain points you got to adhere to, but also you are a creative, so they got to respect your vision as well. So I feel like what I usually do is probably put forward a story first, or a concept, see if they're happy with it, gauge, and see how flexible they are. It depends on the brand, because some of them are really flexible and some of them are more so, no, we got to have this logo like perfect, we got to have like this here. So I think in that case, if you've got a stricter client, I would always propose more ideas. One where it's more like you, another one where it's a bit like in the middle, and another one which is more safe for them. And then they've got choices to choose from, and then you're not disappointing them. But then they can also see what can happen if they go with your vision. And I feel like that is a good place to like hedge your bets, really.
Totally. I think starting out with client work, for everyone that's interesting, it's always really important. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear.
Oh no,
my dog snoring in the background. It's like very loud. She's right here beside me. But I was going to say, when working with clients and bringing your authentic creative to someone else's project that wants to take you on, having a really strong, just personal base of work that you've developed, work that you feel strongly about, work that, you've made for an authentic reason, that's always going to be what a client wants to hire you for, is the work that you've done. And so seeing the work, Steffi, in your portfolio, like, that's what a client is going to want you to make, so building up your own personal portfolio of work that you want to do for other people, I think that's first and foremost an important thing. And then, how it fits with the client is kind of the dance, but hopefully they're coming to you for the work that you make to begin with. So let's see, another couple questions here. Dana Textelli. How complex is it to make AR garments from clo?
I'm probably not the best person to answer that, but I will try. And I say that because I don't use Snapchat, and I know people can use what's it called? Lens Studio. It's called Lens Studio, the program. You can make AR filters in there, and they're actually one of the best for like body tracking. So it's definitely possible. You just got to learn the workflow and actually how to work that program. I haven't used it yet, but it's the reason why I probably use 010, and the reason why I use them is because they digitalize or make it game ready or AR ready for me. And I'm like, as a creative, that just saves me so much time, as in I want to focus on creating, I want to focus on my designs. If there is a company that just helps translate that and optimize it for AR, because there is a lot of optimization for VR, AR, they usually cannot be as detailed as compared to normal like artworks, then having those companies there that do that for me just is like a godsend. But it is possible to learn it, and I think I've just been lazy to learn it, if I'm honest. But that if you are willing to learn AR and digital fashion AR, is another good route in terms of career choices, because it's just going to get more and more popular.
Cool. Super cool. Sorry, I tried to wake my dog up. I think maybe it worked. Oh, yep, she's up. A question came in that I think is another interesting approach from Cybarf here in the feed. They're saying, please give me tips for becoming an enhanced virtual stylist. So I imagine in your world, in the digital fashion world, there's going to be virtual stylists now also. The super interesting concept, you know, maybe as a virtual stylist is using your, you know, designs or your clothing to, you know, digitally or virtually, and, you know, just in digital or in the real space, you know, style out a band or a celebrity. Do you have any thoughts on virtual styling? Is that anything that you've experienced?
I personally haven't experienced that. I feel like it will definitely be a thing the more popular it will get. I have a hard time visualizing that right now, because with digital fashion, there is not only one platform you can just go to and like all the designers are there. It's all very scattered at the moment. So you might have some digital fashion on like Decentraland, and you might have some digital fashions on Sandbox, and you might have digital fashion who are not on either of those and just like to use AR. So it's all very hard to like piece together. I feel like if you were a stylist, you probably, the way I could see it go forward is like commission people to make it for a specific platform or for a specific photograph. And that's how I see that happening at the moment. But it wouldn't be as seamless as just like picking like outfits, unless you're just going to stick to one platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. I mean, there's so much to think about in the future of the space. It's so cool. We're going to do maybe a couple more questions if anyone wants to shoot one down below. This is kind of a re-question, and of course at the end you guys will save this, we'll be able to watch this later, but just for maybe the new people that have joined, from Blue Deem Art, what are a few possible applications of digital fashion in the future? Do you see an increase in demand for the space?
Yes, absolutely.
Say yeah.
I feel like right now there are many companies that are being invested in, and you know, they are growing not only just their company, but growing the education and having people hired for those jobs in their company. So with that, if there's more people being hired for it and there's more education about it, and then adding the tech advancements, which I'm hoping is soon, once that all goes together, it's just going to be, I feel like it's just like going to be this big boom, and a lot more people are going to use it, whether they're going to use it for fun or actually for like styling or for like, I don't know. There's just so many use cases for it at the moment, and I'm excited for also when physical brands take it on as well, whether they're going to go fully digital, you never know, or they might, you know, use it half in their system. They might use it to help for the creation process and for visualizing outfits and before they make it. Or maybe it's a thing where you go to their store and you can wear their outfits with AR or with using an AR mirror. You like it and then you purchase it, and then they send it to you to your door. So it could be things like that.
Yeah, I think for like a user experience for shopping, it's going to be huge. More virtual try-ons, you know, more digital shopping, more filters, more, you know, full outfit filters that you can use or post or, you know, take of yourself. I think it's huge. So we're going to get to wrapping things up in a second here. Steffi, do you want to share some plugs of where people can find you, follow you, watch your tutorials, kind of keep up with the digital fashion world that you'll be developing?
I mean, of course, you guys can follow my social media. It is at Stefhy Fung on all channels. I do tutorials and I also do vlogs about the, I suppose, digital fashion industry and also digital fashion programs. If you guys want to see any live streams, I am doing them on Twitch every single Thursday. And for those who want to take digital fashion a little bit more seriously, I also have a Patreon channel for anyone who wants to get more in-depth knowledge, which combines 3D and fashion. So that is where you guys can find me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for the time. Thank you everyone that joined us. I'm Hannah Stouffer here at H Plus Creative. Stefhy Fung is one of our incredibly talented artists, and we are going to keep this conversation up for you guys to reference in the future. It'll exist on our reels and in our conversations. We'll throw it up on the blog, so you can always come back to it, kind of revisit Steffi's amazing insight in the world of digital fashion. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your time, Steffi. It's been lovely to see you and share this moment, and I will let you have the rest of your evening
and
to
have
yourself.
a lovely Friday.